Testing 1, 2. There we go. Uh-oh, we have one problem. Wait a minute. It always does that. All right. That's better. Well, good evening, everybody. This is going to be a very short talk. I wrote something down for you guys. Oh, by the way, let me hit record. I am, if you guys can't tell, I'm on my last leg. I'm going to actually have to get some rest tonight. I have no choice. I think I'm seeing cross-eyed right now. You guys ever been that tired? Everything is crossing up and out. We don't want to give Flash any blooper material. It's always good to be here with you guys, but I'm going to include you guys in on something so that we can all come to a conclusion. Now, you all know I'm quirky, but sometimes things work out like our 10-day period. You guys know this is the 10th day, right? Is that right? You guys know about the 10 days? You guys know about that? 10 days? Everybody understand what I'm saying when I say 10 days? You guys have been here for a few minutes, right? Last week I said something, well, not last week, but week before last, I said something. Okay, you guys do understand, good. And we have this internal thing going on, COT, that's excellent. Now, you guys that don't understand, you had to get that from somebody inside of COT that does understand about the 10 days. Because, well, at the 10-day mark, right around that, 10-day mark, you see what you see, right? You see what you see. So, folks, or somebody says 25th. No, not the 25th today. It's actually today. Think about it. The day the person was, the day it happened, right? Till today. Count those days up. The day it happened till today. The day it happened till today. I believe the day it happened was what? July. What day was that? That was, my pea brain is not working right. I believe that was July. Was that the 11th? Is that right, guys? You guys sure? Well, if it was the 13th, then today is the day. It's the 22nd. So today is the 10th day. Today is the 10th day. Okay. So on the 10th day, right? Actually, it was, in this case, it was right there around that mark. Around that mark. You guys know what happened, right? That normally follows. So it was the 13th. So the event was on the 13th. And today's the 22nd, just in case you don't know. From the 13th to the 22nd is a 10-day period. 13th to the 22nd is a 10-day period. And normally it takes about, when you're dealing with emotions, right, or suppression, it takes about 10 days before a reversal takes place. So now you know, right? You can call that a best guess. You can call that a whatever you want to call it, right? You're not going to find that in a book either. You won't. But it's accurate. Now, it does vary, right? It varies based on influences, you could say. It varies. But I've been having to assess things like that for decades. So I've gotten pretty good at it. Anyway. Things reverted. Things went back to normal, which is, I spoke about that. I was really hopeful it would not, but it did. It did. this is very difficult to explain. It's somewhat somewhat silly in one respect. But I have to give you guys a seed. Once you have the seed, right, I can rest from it. I need not revisit that again. All right. And again, listen, all of you who have a relationship with Christ, I'm going to tell you something so that you know. When you have a relationship with Christ, learn to ask him. That's all you have to do. When you really need to know something, he's not going to withhold it from you. When you really need to know, all you have to do is determine when you really need to know something. Be honest. See, half the things we think we need to know, we don't. We don't need to know half the things we desire to know. But when you really need to know something, ask him. Normally, when it's a matter of the heart, it deals with the welfare of other people. The Lord will not withhold that from you. So ask him. Ask him. You have a relationship. You guys have that direct line of communication with the Most High, and he will answer you. He will fill you with the answer. Right? Always like to use that term because a lot of people think he will respond with audible speech. It's better to think that he will fill you with the answer. And once you have that answer, trust what he gives you. Trust what he gives you. Okay? There's a very special language to each of us. Learn that language. That comes from spending time with him in prayer, right? Analyzing everything you're given. Take nothing for granted. Take nothing, from the biggest stream to the smallest stream, take nothing for granted. Take everything back to him and inquire about clarification. You'll not be left in the dark. Not ever. Okay? Not ever. Now follow me on this, guys. It was somewhat upsetting to me after the 10-day mark because consequences will follow this. Now there's something I want you guys to keep in mind. Number one, it's already prophesied a dark kingdom is going to rise. It's already prophesied. Number two, the timing of that dark kingdom is based upon us and humanity. Okay? It's based upon us and humanity. When the Christians begin to slip and slide, everything will accelerate. Everything will. And it just so happens that our slipping and sliding, our ability to hold on, our ability to resist the world is intimately tied to the activities in Israel. What you see in Israel, right, is actually Satan attempting to pursue Israel, as told in Revelation. He's in pursuance of Israel. Now, everybody has their ideas about Scripture, right? Everybody differs in certain aspects about Revelation. I tend to tie mine with the book of Daniel. A lot of Revelation is tied to the book of Daniel. So I kind of see all those together. And there's a very specific passage about Satan pursuing the woman, right? He pursues the remnant of her seed. So I take that back. He's not pursuing the woman. He's pursuing the remnant of her seed, her offspring. Well, we know that anything that has offspring had a womb. And we know that God's people came from the womb called Israel, right? And they were dispersed and then recalled. And so he's in pursuance of the Jews. We can see that historically. Historically, we can see it. And it just so happens the same ones that he's in pursuance of, the physical aspect of it, those same ones are somewhat blinded, but they're intimately tied to the end times events. The other half of that will be you all, right? You're also the remnant of her seed, those who believe in Christ, right? The seed being the growth of the faith in the first place. The remnant of that seed is you all, right? You all. So Satan is in high pursuance of the remnant of that seed, right? We know that in the end times, he's full of rage. He knows he has a short time. And he will seek to corrupt any vessel. He can. He will. That's why it's so incredibly important that if it's in our hearts, to allow God to guide us in prayer of leaders. Always allow God to guide you in those prayers. Anyway, because when we face a time like this, and people go from one level of heart back to the old level of heart, we know that something is coming. It is a telltale marker that something is coming, right? Some sort of corrective measure. Why? Because your Father does not want to lose you. He does not want to lose you. Now, our Father is the standard bearer, not us. He is. He is the standard bearer. Our activities, our thoughts, feelings, everything else is very substandard to the Father. But we are but children. Remember that. Children. We're sinners saved by grace, and we're also children. In the scheme of things, we've been alive for about 20 seconds. And the Father's been alive forever. We've been alive for 20 seconds. That means we don't know too much. And often we choose, because of the weight of this world, the expectations of others, we choose not to take that path of holiness all the time. Sometimes we feel we have to really follow the world. When this happens, a breaking will come. Correction will come. It will. And this being the end of that 10-day period, everything is certainly reverted back to its original state, right? Because we're so short-sighted, right? We are. Some sort of tragedy can happen, and then 10 days later, everybody forgets about that tragedy, right? Everybody does, it seems. Or it's not priority. People aren't so thankful for it anymore. One of the keys is being thankful always. And often that's very difficult to maintain in the type of world we live in. And that's for believers. So think about somebody who's young in the faith, or somebody who doesn't have the faith you have. It'll be almost impossible for them, right? But the Lord will work with us. And in these end days, the Father's concerned about the salvation of souls, not what we are concerned about. He's concerned about the salvation of souls. It's probably why a lot of people have been going through correction in these days. And a lot of people, just like this 10-day period, everybody turned inward again. Right? Would that be a fair statement? It seems like, well, not everybody, obviously, but you guys know what I'm saying. A lot of people turned inwardly again. They turned back to their own views. They stopped looking at the external view, being thankful for certain things. They go back internally. That can happen to anybody. There were times in my life when things happened to me, and at first I was very thankful, but it's almost like Satan fights against your memory of the entire event. And because we can't recall the pain, the anguish, and things of that nature, we get disconnected from it. And when that happens, we're not so thankful because we don't really remember, right? It's not fresh in our minds. I did that a couple times, only a couple times. I think I purposely keep things fresh in my mind because in the Bible it says, the Lord warned his people, the day that you forget how I delivered you out of Egypt is the day you go back into bondage. I never want to forget the Father's deliverance, his plans of deliverance for me. In so many areas of my life, I won't forget, which is why I don't develop attitudes of not having a thankfulness. I'll always be thankful because I choose to be thankful. It's not automatic. It's something that we choose to do. And I choose to remember what the Lord delivered me from, no matter what the status is in my life from day to day. I choose to be thankful. It is indeed a choice. When you're young in the faith, sometimes those choices can be difficult. They can. Right? But as you can see, for the most part, we've lost the ability to be genuinely thankful more than 10 days. We have. And because of that, right? This is one of the, I guess you could say, the nail in the coffin. Then what has to take place will take place. And tonight I'm going to talk to you about a dream, which could be, I'm saying it could be a part of that, but it certainly shows something within us that I'm going to drop a seed in the hopes that we don't continue in that path. Anyway, let me give you the dream set. I was in a city, not a big city, not that I could tell. I mean, it's building. It's like it was downtown. Think about Charlotte, right? Charlotte. It looked like Charlotte. And I was going to, or coming from a place I was in a grocery store that was in the bottom of the building, right, at the base floor of the building. And I was in a deli. It was a grocery store. But I noticed in that grocery store, there was a long line of people. Also, only two columns in that store had merchandise. There was no merchandise anywhere else, just on those two aisles. I'm sorry, the two aisles had merchandise, had food. Nothing else had food. Right? It was a very long line. And I remember you couldn't buy anything you wanted to buy. You had to buy what you were allotted to buy. It was almost like things were rationed at that point, which was not a big deal to anybody at the time. It appeared that people were, they were somewhat complicit with that, right? Very thankful for the small little bit they had. But people began to change, and it was almost like it was in this person's body, because it surely wasn't me. And I was observing people, and people were turned inwardly about all their concerns and everything else, just turned inwardly, right? They weren't so aware of anything external. They were just aware and concentrating on what they needed, what they wanted, what they were doing, right? Like a person with a preoccupied day or a full schedule. They had no time to think about anything else. Well, I started to hear people talk. And it was people began to get phone calls in this deli. And I heard, or I saw people quickly going out of this grocery store. So I did too. I went out there to see what was going on. When I went out there, I really didn't have too much clarity, but I saw more people starting to rush, right? Starting to hurry up and get into cars, or hurry up and go to this place, or to get out of that area. So I found myself hearing a warning. People, they were telling people to go to a certain specific location within the city. As I looked up, the corner of a building it seemed like it was hit, right? It was hit, and the corner just fell down. And somehow I was familiar with it. I knew about that somehow, but it just fell down. As I go through the rubble, one of the women that was in this deli that had a baby, I saw this woman there, right? I saw that woman with that baby, and she was concentrating on this baby. She was distressed at that point because things were starting to happen. Now, at this point, when the corner of the building fell, people were still turned inwardly. In other words, they were thinking about themselves, thinking about their own thing, and a great majority of people could not recognize that the building fell, right? It was not enough to get them to look outside of themselves. So as I'm going through this rubble, more buildings begin to crumble, Right? This is happening out of the blue, no warning, no anything. These buildings start to fall. And I get through all those buildings. Now, people are still turned inwardly, but now they're beginning to be frightened. They're starting to take notice of the city, and they cannot believe it. It's crumbling down to the ground almost instantly. Now, it's very difficult to tell if the ground was shaking violently, but I know the ground was shaking, right? Enough to knock those corner of the buildings down. So we continue to go, and as I'm going along, I pick up this other guy who was going in the same direction. And we all start working together to get this woman with the baby to a place of safety. Then we meet this other guy. And we're trying to get this woman with this baby to a place of safety. One of the guys that was with us, he was turned inwardly so much that even the buildings crumbling on the corners did not hold this person's attention. And they were done for, right? Like reboxed, I guess you could say. They were done for. We continue on, and I'm transported after we get through a set of falling debris and buildings, and people are screaming, and they're really caught off guard. It was a sad thing to see because they had no expectation of it. It was too normal of a day. There was no need to even think about that. But it happened anyway. At the end of it, a helicopter flies over and is telling everybody to go to a specific location. So we kind of take off and start going there. We get to this location, and the building we were supposed to get on top of has partially collapsed. And this woman with this baby, this was a baby that could not walk. We're trying to get her to safety. So one of the guys that was with, he starts thinking about getting in his car because we're near a big parking lot on a hillside. And he's starting to go back to his car, and I'm thinking in my head, well, I can't get him because if I go and get him, I'm not going to come back and he won't either. And then we can't do anything for this woman and her child. One person was already going with her, but, between him and I, things were happening too quick. They were happening so quick that if you made adjustments in your plan of survival or whatever it was, your path going forward, you would be lost. It would overtake you, right? Knowing this, I said, I can't go with this guy. I was saying this in my mind. I can't go with this guy. And it was deeply saddening. Now, listen, all the while, my heart is pounding out of my chest. This was so stressful because the looks on the people's faces, this look of disbelief, this look of a disconnect, it was that feeling was that they were, totally turned inwardly, disconnected, only thinking about themselves, full of sorrow, Now they were desperate to survive, but it was hopeless. It was overwhelming. And this helicopter flies over, giving further instruction. And we were trying to get this woman to the highest point possible, this crumbled building. And so we went to the back of the building, like the helicopter instructed, to get this woman, up this. She starts going up with the baby. Well, I'm thinking about this guy that ran to the car, and I just kind of stopped. But I start looking back to the parking lot. As I look back, the entire parking lot broke, and something came up from the center of the parking lot, just thrusting the entire parking lot was broken, and it began to thrust the parking lot upward, like something was breaking out. But what was breaking out was hot, steamy, glowing orange, right? According to, in this dream, according to the Weather Channel, it was like one of those tragedy stories, right? Like 9/11. When they covered 9/11, They were in disbelief. They covered the story. They were in disbelief. They didn't really know what to say, so they just covered, facts about that story. It was kind of like that. They couldn't do anything. You could hear the distress in their mouths. They couldn't do a thing. They too were helping to guide people by getting information from those spotters in the air. What was coming out of this parking lot that was on a hillside turned out to be magma. And it cut off any escape route anybody would have except the ocean buoys and things like that. This upthrust in that parking lot split the land, broke off a piece of that entire hillside. It was so hot. It was incredibly hot. There was just no escaping that. And it was coming up too quick. I didn't make it. It was too hot. It was too fast. It was too hot. I didn't have time. The helicopter was already going over top of that building to get the woman, but nobody else made it out. Right now, I failed to mention when I glanced back when we got near that site, there was a lot of people out there. By the time we got the woman, nobody was out there. Right? Nobody. The heat overtook them. They didn't notice anything because they were turned inwardly. Because they were only thinking about what they needed, what they wanted, what they thought. All these thoughts, the sentiment of a person, everything turned inwardly. So much so they were not aware of anything externally. Anything outside of themselves, they were not aware of. It was almost like each person was living in a separate universe. Each one living in their own world. And from time to time, they would meet in a common place in the world, like a parking lot, like a grocery store. That dream, ladies and gentlemen, had me in terror. It did. I woke up I was sweating. I didn't sleep, evidently, because I had been running all night. Anyway, that was that. But I had this sensation when it was over. Now, there's something weird about these dreams I have, right? You know how you have a silly dream? And you know it's silly, right? You have a symbolic dream. Somehow you know it's symbolic. This dream was something different. It was almost like it was a reality dream, not symbolic, but it has symbolic components in there. I can recognize that. But it was one of those absolutes and an urgent. Because in this dream, on the news, they were talking about Harris. They were talking about Biden. They were talking about Trump. It was near the fall. It had to be near the fall. The place I was in had a misty rain all the time. It was cold there too, but it had a misty rain. That was no good. Standing up top this hillside too also. Standing up top this hillside where this last building was. You could also see an airport. The whole airport, you could see it. You could see the airport. But the part that got me was in the dream they were talking about. Now, mind you, this was what? Last night? I'll say early in the morning. And they were talking about Biden, and they were talking about Harris, and they were talking about Trump, and they were talking about another male figure they were talking about. And this was on the news, but when I woke up from this, right, and wrote this thing down, so it would be, kind of fresh, I wrote it down. Later on that morning, guess what they were talking about? The same thing. That's when they said Biden dropped out of the race. Well, they said that in that dream. They said since Biden had dropped out of the race, something had taken place again. They were talking about events that were taking place since Biden dropped out of the race. And when you wake up, boom, there it is, right? But this magma, there's no warning for that. None. The sensation of something real, I'll give you a demonstration. Some of you guys may remember. You guys remember that time I just got on air and I was telling you guys I smelled smoke. I just smelled smoke everywhere. Do you guys remember what happened a couple of days later? It could have been the next day. At max, a couple of days later. Do you guys remember what happened? You remember the derailment and the fire and the people that burned up in the train? You remember that? Because I felt hot and I smelled smoke. And I wanted you guys to know that. In fact, I think it was somebody out there online that picked up that saw it the next day and said that the train was burning. Well, stuff like that happens. It just happens. In this case, the hopelessness of seeing that magma, the escape route was cut off. It was totally cut off. It pushed up the parking lot at least 75 feet. At least. That's at least 75 feet. Now, I don't know where this was. It could be Italy. It could have been any place, really. But it was too involved. It was too involved. I get the sense it's going to be like that train. Right? It's going to be just like that train. The key here, the seed I want to plant, even though that may take place, right? That may take place just like that. But the key here was people were turned inwardly so much that everything about them became this planned thing. Nothing was done naturally. It seemed like everything was done by plan. And men had become heartless, non-reflective at the time. Well, now you guys have it. Somebody said it sounds like Portland, Oregon. You know what? It seems that way, doesn't it? I don't want to actually call that out because I have no idea where it was. But that was awful. Magma, by the way, is awful. It is a terrible thing. You can't swim through it. You can't escape it when it begins to flow and it pushes heavy things around, like nothing. Like nothing. But the people turn inwardly. It was like each person was their own separate, tiny little universe. Nobody existed outside of that. That's what it was like. So now you have it. Do you guys remember the one time, I'll give you another example. Do you guys remember the one time I jumped on air and I said, listen, guys, I had a dream I was in the city and for no reason, the buildings started coming down. You guys remember that? And it was a woman. I went back to get this woman out of the buildings. You guys remember that? And then I believe it was a week later, Ukraine started. The Ukraine-Russian conflict began. So it's a similar thing. If this follows any record, any track record, well, you should have guessed that by now. Okay, that's my seed sown. I hope, pray that all of us are not turned inwardly so much that we start losing our compassion of one another, to have situational awareness wherever we go, not because of fear, right? But it's kind of like a leader. In addition to what I tell you guys, a leader is. A leader is not actually somebody who makes the right decisions all the time, right? A leader is a person that takes responsibility over those decisions. A leader is not somebody who wins all the time. No, the measure of a leader is how he handles loss. And no one is qualified to be a leader. Not that I've ever known of, unless they go through something bad and recover from it. That's the leader. Because they're not doing the wishful thinking thing. They know about it. And that changes everything. All right. Anybody have any questions before I'll tell you what, let me take a short break. You guys swallow that, and I'll be right back in just a few minutes. All right? I have to stand up, or I'm going to fall asleep. Somebody said I didn't hear about the CA moving that much. Yeah, well, this was, it was not good. Not good. Not good at all. I'm going to take a break. I'll be right back in a few minutes, hopefully a little more awake. It's only going to take me about maybe 10 more minutes. I'll be done. Okay? I'm going to take a break first and answer questions if anybody has any. But I hope that you take this. Remember at least some of it. Treat it like a seed. Like a response. All right, guys. Let me take a short break. I'll be right back in just a few minutes. Just a few minutes. Okay, everybody, a few questions. You guys get that pretty clear, right? I don't want to zone out. I am incredibly tired. My goodness, I think that sucked the life out of me today, starting out first. Anyway, I have this written down. I'm going to type this up in the morning so you guys can have a record of it. I'm going to have to do that with every single insight I get. I will. Every single insight I get. The caution in this. It's almost like something has already gone forward. And we just might. Might have to deal with that sooner than we think. It just might. Any updates on the ice sheet? Well, that thing is still melting. To my understanding of a part of it broke a little, causing a pretty big ripple across the board. Pretty big. Just so you know, they have trackers on the coastlines, so they know what they're losing or what they could be gaining. Right, folks, I see Mike just said it's like days of okay, in the Bible, when it says these days are going to be like the days of Noah, Jesus, he continued to speak. He qualified that by saying people were marrying and given into marriage, right? Doing all these normal things until the flood came and took them all away. So shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. Well, guess what? If they were doing all that back then, they had no idea or did not take seriously the warnings, right? There's no way they could have taken seriously the warnings. So think of a place much like ours where people are not concerned about prophecy too much. Just think of that, and there you'll have it. Somebody says, let me go back. The rhetoric is brutal out there. Yes, it is. Yeah, it is. Unfortunately. It's very important. Somebody says, I'm having a crisis in my family. How do I know when staying? How do I know when staying and doing more damage than leaving? Well, first of all, if it's an abusive situation, right? If that situation is abusive, two things are happening. But you guys have to listen carefully. Listen very carefully. This one can't be taken out of context. There are often times when we're in a relationship and it's not working out the way we wanted it to work, right? When that happens, if you don't mind, take your hold on, guys. Let me reset this thing right here. I knew that wasn't recording. Are you kidding? Now it is. We're good to go. We're good to go. So wait a minute. Let's go back. The question was, I'm only going to take a couple more. When you have a crisis at home, if it's abusive, the commitment is gone. Take note of something that when a person commits, you guys know that scripture where it says, what God has put together, let no man put asunder. A lot of people use that like it's a cardboard prop. What God has joined together, right? He also raised. When you're dealing with two people that are raised to be together, what he puts together, he does so from the inside out. What we put together, we do so from the outside in. When we put ourselves with other people, we don't exactly have commitment. Commitment of heart means everything. See, a person who commits of the heart will look at another person and say, you know what? No matter what, I'm here. And if the other person does the same, you have a full commitment. You can't have a half commitment where one person commits and the other one does not. And so in the New Testament, dealing with couples or marriages, the Apostle Paul said, I'm not giving you a new commandment or anything like that. But he ended up giving some advice. He said, when you're unequally yoked, that unbeliever desires to go, let them go. What was that? That's in the Bible, though. Let them go. Now, here's the heart of that scripture. Two people committed to each other, nothing has power to break them apart. No matter what comes, they're going to be together. Why? Because they have a heart or a soul, I'll say heart commitment. It was of the heart. It was truth, and God was a witness of that. All too often, you have these one-sided situations. All too often. All right. Hopefully I answered that. Right? Hopefully I did. Somebody say, why is my head spinning so hard since the last 2 weeks? Are there more solar storms? Well, we have a few, but it's hard to tell. Hard to tell. Inquire deeply. The Lord will let you know why. Things don't happen by coincidence, guys. When something weird happens in your life, start asking the Lord, what do I need to do? At the next one, let's see. My mouse is not working. Hold on, guys. There we go. Trying to get back to Mixler. Somebody says, I truly believe there's no safe location spot when everything really gets going. Thoughts? I do. Since I've been young, you guys know this, I've been plagued, you could say, with the same dream 24 times. I'm so used to that dream now that if I notice elements of that dream, I can freely point them out. One of the, just so you guys know, part of the reason this breakdown is happening with quite a few people is that the ability to suppress what you really think, what you really feel, is vanishing. It's going away. And people are doing exactly what they want to do. Right? So it's going away. That sincerity is leaving. People are turned inwardly. They're not very sensitive to what somebody else wants so much. People want what they want. It's consuming them. I hope and pray it does not consume any of you guys. I do. And I hope that you can help others not be consumed by it. Okay, guys, let's see. Somebody said, Mike, these verses came to mind from your dream, trying to save the woman and her baby. Salvation of others needs to be our priority. I hope it is a priority, but also take note. Salvation is never forced. Salvation is something that a person has recognition of, right? They can be encouraged by being told the truth. But for the most part, people have that message, and they're still saying, they're not interested. Or let's say everybody has their own way they think salvation works. And a lot of people don't want you to question their method or mode of belief. The world is so free right now that it's almost just like it was back then, where everybody can believe in things according to what they believe. That's how things are operating for the most part. Brother Mike, will we still have the AI talk? Yes. What's that say? Update on equatorial movement. The North Pole movement is the first tracking piece of that process. Take note too, right when the reversal is supposed to happen, we go through a pause ourselves. We begin to rotate back in the other direction. Yeah, we do. Thoughts on people who say they hear God's audible voice. That's up to them. Listen, if somebody says they hear God's audible voice, now in the Bible it says God is spirit. But if they want to say they hear his audible voice, and suppose it's not true, and they're just saying that, let them say it. Let them say it. All right, who's next? Some are turning inward because to speak about what they see would cause distress in others. Well, this turning inward scenario, many people are just self-consumed with their own issues. Have you ever been self-consumed with a problem so much you're not thinking about the Lord? It happens. All right, guys. Let's see. Uh-oh. What is that? Oh. Okay, folks. I'm going to skedaddle. I will. I'll be on tomorrow, Lord willing. I'll be on as soon as possible so that we can discuss further topics. Not on this one. Is any kind of implant a part of the mark? Well, no, when it gets here, it's going to be something very efficient. You know, right now, there are a lot of people who utilize, they don't carry a wallet. They just simply carry their phone. Their phone is their new wallet. They have all the printouts in the wallet, right? So people trust computers for printouts of what's in the wallet, and they're so used to not using cash that it'd be easy to install the rest of it, which is the human factor. But also, I don't believe it's not necessary to implant a person or to even mark a person. That's no longer necessary. All right, you guys, before I fall out this chair and go to sleep, because I'm barely making it, my eyeballs are shutting. You guys have that dream. So if something happens, right, you've got it. Just remember something. Even if it does happen physically, things like that will continue to happen until they reach that crescendo point. But the major seed in this is, if we can continue to care about those outside of ourselves, God will not have us blinded concerning what he's doing. People only become blinded by their own internal lusts, by what they want, right? That blinds us. When you're always thinking about what you want or what you think and things along those lines, you become blind to your environment. You become blind to the needs of the people around you. And you certainly become blind to what the Lord's about to do and bring about. Okay, Flash has some editing to do, and I'm going to talk to you guys tomorrow, twice probably. We have another event this week. Again. We will. But it's a good, I guess you could say, a good exercise to understand the vulnerabilities that we have. We went through the computer deal. Now it's important for people to know that we are not fully shielded. It's important to know that we are vulnerable. And if we don't exercise vigilance and holiness, we're going to be kaput. And I'll say it again. I said it last night last night, Pastor Paul. I believe that your steps are the next steps that matter. That's what I believe. The world can't do it. We don't know how to do it. You do. You know how. And the Most High will never leave you high and dry. Once you begin, he'll never do that. His heart is constantly toward you. But he will still bring about what he said he will bring about. Somebody said hide some cash. Well, you guys know what I feel about that, right? People are going to have their money, but they're going to run out of product. Oh, by the way, I know I said it was a short talk. Let me explain this to you guys. Even since last week and since the convention, do you not know that other countries have reconfigured their manufacturing facilities? See, they have to do it a specific way for the USA. Kind of like these overseas cars. The window thickness has to be at a certain level before they import a car. Certain things have to be fortified before they import a car, right? Well, China, they have, they redid the robots, so they do it to a, China standard now. Russia, likewise. Middle East, likewise. Because somehow our declaration got out that we're not going to get too much product from overseas anymore. This will cause many things not to flow into the U.S. So the focus would be this. And I would encourage this. For things like candles, right? Certain batteries, flashlights, certain, critical things like that are not made here in the USA, right? If you find a good deal, hop on it, because that deal won't be around. It won't. It won't. 37 says Southeast Asia updates. Well, my mind is on volcanism, big time, right? Volcanism is a very big deal. Volcanism and something else, but listen, after I make this recording with Pastor Paul this weekend, we have discussion to be had, guys. It's going to get so, somehow we've all got to get prepared to face a living spiritual element. And we can do it, but the world will be in high distress when that time comes. High distress. Unfortunately. So have your hearts ready, please. Have your hearts ready. Try not to get stuck looking inwardly and forgetting about those around you. Try not to get stuck like that. Keep your heart open to those around you with sobriety and wisdom. It's almost like everything's going to be compacted now. The Lord did say he would bring a swift end to things. The Lord did say that if time was not cut short and his intervention was not there, no flesh would have been saved. So by that we can deduce, we can honestly see that he will. Now when he says he's going to, people use a phrase, they say he's going to speed up the time. Think of it this way. The events will start to happen concurrently, back to back, until they're all happening all at the same time, all at once. That would be devastating. This week you'll get a taste again of what it is when nobody discusses something. It is those things they do not discuss that inflict the most damage. I'll see you guys in the morning. Not morning, afternoon. Let me get out of here before I make a commitment I can't keep. God bless you guys. Keep going. Keep going. A very thorough one this week, Peter, with a disclosure, audio disclosure for the KD files. God bless and keep you guys. I'll see you next time right here at COT. Or neither. I don't trust that deal either. 37. That's a keep your eye on that, because that's That's a very big statement you just made. God bless you guys. I'm going to see you next time. No music either. It's too late. We'll just go flat line. God bless.